Okay, 10:15, so we're gonna get going. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the first breakout session of the conference. This is session A, What Does This Mean? Combining media and information literacy to recognize misinformation in memes. And our presenter is Renée Fratantonio, who's the Instruction and Research Services Librarian at Fitchburg State University. Just a couple of notes before we get started. The session is being recorded. We do ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation, but we will have a Q&A portion at the end of her presentation. Feel free to type your questions into the chat as we go along, and Susan and I will make note of those. Or if you want to wait to the end and actually unmute yourself and ask them out loud, you can do that too. So just keep those things in mind. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Renée.
Well, thank you. I'm going to begin sharing my screen and make sure that I've got the right one. Always a stressor during this strange time. So this will be my first time using the Microsoft Office 365. So I think this is the correct one. If you could just let me know that. That's always great when we get to references first. The subtitles, are those working or captioning? Do we see anything when I say stuff?
It says starting subtitles.
Okay. Do you want me to just?
I think if you hit allow, that should work.
Okay. How about now? Oh, there we go. Sorry for technical difficulties. It has been a wonderful week at the library during the summer. And so hello, I'm Renée. I am the Instruction and Research Services Librarian. My position title is actually going to be changing soon, but it's another long one, so who cares? What does this mean? This is a presentation that I actually submitted before the pandemic, and then it became a situation where this is even more important in a during pandemic / post-pandemic, whatever portion of time we are in now. What is time? So I was approached by a faculty member for a class on health and nutrition, and she wanted to talk about misinformation in meme culture with her students to kind of get them thinking more critically about what they were finding on social media about health and nutrition. So this began with this kind of question of how do we teach students to unpack misinformation that is being shared on social media. So that's the connection to the Web 2.0 technologies digital divide issue that we are at. The other thing that you do need to know before we get into this is that I just finished another degree in social media and applied communications. So some of this is some crossover of media literacy and information literacy together. The problem that I have encountered is that we do an excellent job, I think, once we get into college of teaching information literacy, teaching research skills so that our students know what to do when they are asked about an academic paper. But how about teaching them how to engage with information in other contexts, in the wider information landscape? The vast majority of the information they're going to consume is not going to be academic in nature. So how do they transfer their information literacy skills to new contexts, new mediums? So that is where we are starting. So I'd like to ask you to kind of look at these two things and ask yourself, is this a meme? We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to guess that most of you are going to say, yes, these are memes. Some of you may even recognize Velociraptor over on the right side. Velociraptor is a meme that has been around for quite a long time now. And when you see this particular meme, you already know that it means a certain thing to you. It has a name because it's talking about the philosophizing raptor because of the kind of position the raptor is in, the claw kind of in the thinking position. It's an excellent use of visual communication, using images to relay a kind of understanding of a feeling. Again, we've also got the emu. It may not be an emu, it may be an ostrich, but we have the ostrich that reminds us a little bit of a librarian. And then we add this like textual language on top of it. And that gives us another piece of information for us to unpack. So when we look at these things, we know that they are amusing to us, the in-group, the librarians, because, hey, a lot of us do wear cardigans. I forgot to wear mine today. I should have. And then you also probably had that experience with a student or just anyone asking about a book without having enough information about it. But what about this? Do you think of tweets as memes? So this is a particular meme that, well, yes, I'm going to say it is a meme. This is a piece of information that has been shared for many years now about the Yale Beinecke Rare Books Library. The fun fact about this library: if a fire starts in the library, all the oxygen leaves the building, killing all who are inside in order to protect the rare books. Now, does that sound like something librarians who are very protective of their rare materials would do? Maybe, but could you fact check this? Could you find out more information about it? When this kind of information is shared in a tweet form, it becomes viral in many cases, and it further compounds a rumor about the Yale Beinecke Library. It has actually been debunked many, many times. Every time this has come up, the Yale Library puts out a statement like, no, this is not what happens. This is not how our fire prevention system works. There's actually a citation here for the most recently occurring USA Today news article that also debunks this rumor, but it persists. So what about understanding what a meme actually is? So if you've never heard the definition, the first time that this was defined was by a man named Richard Dawkins. I'm forgetting the actual year. It's not included in my image, unfortunately. But this is an idea, a behavior, a style, or usage that spreads from person to person within a culture. Typically, when we think of memes, we think of it in the term of the second definition here: an amusing or interesting item, such as a captioned picture or video, or genre of items that is spread widely online, especially through social media. But for the purposes of this discussion today, we're going to be focusing on Richard Dawkins' original definition of a meme, because these are not only going to be pieces of information that are spreading in that graphic, humorous way, they're going to come in other formats. So we need to be prepared to transfer those information literacy skills to those new formats. So this is where we get into the questionable stuff. I have a few examples here that I have used with the students in the health and nutrition class. Or actually just two. The first one is real medicine comes from the earth, not a lab. And we've got a little caption over an image again. And we've got what looks like spices and a mortar and pestle. Then you've also got, it's kind of hidden, a little example of some anti-vax information that goes around about setbacks that may occur when you vaccinate your children at 2, 4, and 6 months. So these memes can go from being very humorous things that we dismiss to suddenly being things that share contested, questionable, in many cases, damaging and harmful information. So because of their format, memes are an excellent vehicle for misinformation. They use humor, they're bite-sized, they trade upon in-group understanding. So if we think again of those library memes at the beginning, we find them funny because we're part of the in-group. But someone else may not quite find them very funny or understand the message enladened within that image and text. So for us, looking at a meme that's coming from an anti-vax group, we may be unaware of what this means about the setbacks. You kind of need a little bit of understanding about the conversation in order to understand the meme. Artificial intelligence. So when we think again about how this all connects back to Web 2.0 technologies, it's not advanced enough to be able to read any of this misinformation. So even though sites like Facebook are trying to crack down on misinformation on their sites, and I'll put trying in quotes here because what are they really doing? I'm not sure. They are only able to train their AI at this point to read textual HTML language. So when we post something in a status update, that algorithm and AI can recognize those pieces of information. But when we put it into an image and we put the text also within the image, it is very difficult for AI to be able to filter out this kind of misinformation. So it's also, again, going to play upon your in-group understanding. Do you understand the language, the cultural meaning, the archetypes, the stereotypes, and laden with the picture? Because AI is definitely not trained to be able to recognize Velociraptor, definitely not able to recognize condescending Wonka. So even if you have factual information as the text within the image, you may be subverting the textual information with the image itself. So what meme have you used to subvert the text? Meme culture is constantly changing. In fact, when I did this activity, I had to try and find particular examples and artifacts for the students. And I had to like find things that they didn't recognize as memes to begin with. And it was difficult to find things that they could relate with immediately as a younger group. They call these fresh. Whether or not a meme is fresh can determine whether or not they find it funny. So condescending Wonka is apparently not fresh anymore. That's a shame in my opinion, but whatever. So because it's constantly changing, we need to be aware of those changes, but also aware that we can still use the same principles and skills and mindsets from information literacy to teach students to fact check and to engage in the research process with something like a meme. I believe that it is critical to do this because memes are part of passive information consumption. They are doing this on a daily basis. They come across memes in the wild in all different types of platforms. So there are many people that are going to probably dismiss this entire argument as that the memes are not significant at all. Why are we going to waste time on this? You may experience pushback from some professors if you were to raise this, but when we think about how we are passively consuming information as we are scrolling through our social feeds, we are incidentally being exposed to potentially harmful information. So when we laugh at something because we found it funny, but we don't realize that it's also laden with some harmful information about a subject, then we are engaging with it. So let's say we liked it on Facebook. We've just given the algorithm a new piece of information to use to tailor our feed and possibly share more of those types of memes, potentially worse content as the algorithm continues to learn what you find funny. So with that being said, Baby Yoda. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, maybe you don't recognize this particular meme, but Baby Yoda like blew up when he first hit the scene as a wonderful source of meme culture. He's highly memeable. This particular one, when we see Baby Yoda with a little cup and looking cute, we know that it looks cute, right? If you are part of the out group for The Mandalorian, maybe you don't know enough about what else is happening in this scene to be able to add additional information onto the image and to unpack it. But if you are an in-group member, then you know that in this scene, Baby Yoda is kind of casually sitting back and observing something like, oh, that's funny, that's cute. I'm just gonna sit back here and observe quietly with my cup of spotchka, or I think he might be drinking soup, whatever. So the meme's text, we now take out the picture. me sipping on my chaga tea while all the people in my life get the flu for the third time this season. I found this particular meme from a questionable source called David the Avocado Wolf. If you haven't seen any of his stuff, that's excellent. I'm happy for you. But if you have, then you may have heard some of the crazy things about him, like chocolate can solve all of the world's problems. It is like the most powerful medicine. Chocolate can cure cancer. There's something about the sun also. I don't know all of it, but he also has kind of made himself popular by sharing lots of inspirational quotes or things that taken out of context seem perfectly fine, but he trades in a lot of disinformation and misinformation about the coronavirus, about vaccines, and about holistic homeopathy, different alternative medicines. So when I saw this particular meme, I knew it was a good one to use with my students because Yoda, Baby Yoda is fresh, or it was at the time. I don't know if he's still considered fresh. When we look at this with a student, we might be asking them to engage in both forms of literacy, using their media literacy to unpack what they know about the image, and then using information literacy to deconstruct the text and identify the pieces of information that can be fact-checked. So some first questions you might be asking yourself are, what is chaga tea? How likely is it for you to catch the flu 3 times in one season if you don't get your vaccine? Or like in this case, like maybe someone has gotten their vaccine has gotten their flu shot. There's a certain level of judgment that is being passed upon somebody who is getting the flu 3 times or is experiencing the flu for the 3rd time, but you're safe because you've got your chaga tea. You're just sitting back and observing, I'm doing the right thing. I've got my chaga tea. But again, what do you know about this when you first see it? Do you dismiss it the first time? Do you engage with it? These are kinds of questions about that passive information consumption that we just don't know. One of the other problematic things about a meme as an introduction to something like chaga tea is if you're not critically thinking about what chaga tea is, the next time you see it might be on the shelf at the grocery store. And you may only remember that you heard chaga tea is good for you and it helps prevent the flu. But what do you really know about what you're putting in your body? Has this been FDA approved? Is this something that you should be purchasing and consuming? All of these are potential problems for this kind of meme culture. So, a fun example, because this isn't only going to happen with pictures, it's also going to happen with images. So in this case, I found this video and I'm going to see if it plays. So Jillian, could you just let me know if people can hear?
Both sides, you simply tear it out and throw it away.
Hi there. At the Courthouse Library in Toronto, we have a different suggestion for bookmarking your spot. A scrap piece of paper works really nice. Postcard works really well as a bookmark. Post-its work really well because you can't pull them out. You actually have to work to remove them. They really hold your spot well. Those are our ideas at the Courthouse Library.
Because once I finish a page, both sides, you simply tear it out.
Okay, so first time I saw this video, it's super clever of the Toronto Law Library. That's great of them to mash up this video to create a new video for themselves that helps promote their library. That's excellent memeing. I'm proud of them. However, there's a couple of things that require some understanding of how media is currently being used, how social media is currently being used, and how do we trace this original video back to its source. How do we know whether or not it's a joke? So some of you may remember the International Federation of Libraries, I believe, IFLA, they put out an infographic with the wake of fake news first becoming the big talking point and asked you to keep in mind, is it satire? Is it a joke? Is it a parody? that is a really important question for this particular video and for other TikTok style and real videos that are out there. If you see the video, you may not realize that it is engaging in a viral meme-like trend. So when you see something like this, it's important to try and figure out, well, do I need more information? Is this actually something to get angry about? So when I saw the video, I did share it with my friends and I was in uproar, like, how dare she rip out a page from that book? I'm so angry right now. And then I had that, and I came back to my senses and thought, this must be a joke, right? This must be a joke. So when videos on Instagram Reels are shared from TikTok, a lot of the time they're going to still include the original handle for the author. So sometimes it's as simple as teaching our students to recognize where to find that handle and how to look it up. So down at the bottom, I'm not sure if I can actually pause this. I can. So down towards the bottom here, it's definitely too small for all of you to see. It has the handle of the original TikTok creator. And this TikTok creator, just to save time, does have all of her videos publicly available. So I was able to just look up the handle, find the original account. She's a book lover. That's her whole personality on her TikTok profile, is all about sharing book recommendations and enjoying books and just geeking out about book culture. So this video is a joke. And while, again, we're talking about something that doesn't seem very important, think about how this could appear when we are talking about more important issues, when we are talking about Black Lives Matter, when we're talking about anti-Asian hate, when we're talking about vaccines. All of these different social issues are also being discussed on these platforms. So it's really, really important for us to be aware of how the conversation is moving and teaching our students to be able to go and find more information about it, to trace information back to its original source. So I've got a couple more examples to go through, and then I want to get you into an activity. But before we can get into the activity, I want to share with you what I actually do when I am teaching students how to do all of this themselves. This particular meme, again, my students look at this and they don't think that it looks like a meme. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I've done a long presentation. So I need a sip of kombucha and I'll be all right. A lot of my students look at this particular picture and dismiss it. It's not a meme. But this particular screenshot has been shared so widely on Facebook that it has been deleted multiple times. It has been removed by the accounts, by Facebook itself. And there are now multiple articles on the open web that you can find that debunk this particular meme because it just keeps resurfacing. But it is an excellent example for teaching how to deconstruct and fact check information. So we have at the top of the image, the text. So that's our first pieces of information that we need to unpack. But we also at the bottom have two images. Images are always going to do better on most social platforms because we're a visual culture. We like to see things. If you think about your own posting behavior on Facebook, do you get more likes for your pictures or do you get more likes for your status updates? Generally, it's going to be your pictures. They just translate well and they get higher engagement. So this screenshot will get high engagement because it's using image and text. And thinking again about how these AI systems cannot read the text because it's now an image, it can game the whole system. So what is the message? This one has a very clear message for us to unpack. First step, well, no one must die of cancer except out of carelessness, according to Dr. Gupta. First step is to stop all sugar intake. Without sugar in your body, cancer cell would die a natural death. Second step is to blend a whole lemon fruit with a cup of hot water and drink it for about 1 to 3 months. First thing before food and cancer would disappear. according to research from the Maryland College of Medicine, who says it's 1,000 times better than chemotherapy. And third step is to drink 3 spoonfuls of organic coconut oil morning, night, and cancer would disappear. This image, this meme, was shared with me by someone that I was very close to, and I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I was like half asleep, so I immediately just started debunking it. I was like, oh, well, haven't you heard about coconut oil is not recommended by the American Heart Association. So I started going through it, and he pushed back. He said, well, can you even trust the CDC? Can you even trust the American Heart Association? How do you know that any of them are right? Why isn't this meme providing like better information? So we've got another whole issue to deal with when it comes to how susceptible we all are to this kind of manipulation through misinformation, but I don't have time for that today. Just talking about how these things do have an impact. They contain misinformation that is damaging, and we need to take them seriously, and we need to teach our students to take this kind of content seriously so that they can fact check it. This is an example I've done an entire video on for a health literacy, not health literacy, a consumer health class, where I've unpacked like, how would I research each of these claims? I find that this is really helpful for our students that are in the nursing program here to see how their patients are probably going to be coming to them with this kind of information in their back pocket. You know, they've seen a meme that tells them that all they need to do are these 3 things, but they haven't actually critically engaged with that information before. So teaching our students to go to the original sources when they can, find whether or not Snopes has debunked the article already, retrace the research process, find peer-reviewed research on whether or not the ketogenic diet, in this case, for that first one, actually does help. So the process that I'm teaching my students is to unpack the message and the images. This is where we get into another layer of media literacy here. We have 2 images, both of which could be retraced to their, or semi-retraced to their original source. You don't necessarily need to get into all of the details here, but we do need to kind of question why this particular picture of a man in scrubs is being used to pair with the text. Do we know that this is Dr. Gupta? No, we don't. In fact, if we look even more closely at this image, we can see that there is text at the bottom of it that has been cropped. So we don't even have the full picture. We are lacking context for this image. Next to it, we've got an image that appears to be a dissected body. I've done some reverse image searching for this picture already, and I'm pretty sure that this comes from that traveling exhibit Body World. So this is showing, I think, the vascular system. How do these images go together? Why do they go together? They're not taken from the same thing, but they are being used to convey a certain level of authority to the image, to the text above it, right? So we've got a man who may be a doctor because he's wearing scrubs, and we have a human anatomy-like image that is paired with text to convey information. They support each other. And for some people, this would be convincing enough. So unpacking both is important. I think also in this case, there is a question of potential reliance on stereotyping too. We don't even know anything about this man's nationality, but he's being called Dr. Gupta. So again, meme culture is going to draw from all types of cultural understanding and knowledge and stereotypes to convey messages, and in many cases, misinformation. So this would be the third question. What assumptions are being made by the meme? Asking yourself, how does the image support or subvert the message? And asking yourself what information requires additional, rather what content requires additional information? How would you research this? So this is where I get into actually working with the students to unpack the information that has been shared with them and research it. This is a process. And again, I have the entire video on this. So if you would like to see how I go through the process, I'm happy to share it. Just don't have enough time today. But identifying the pieces of information, we've already done that. We just went through this nice and easy text. We've got 3 claims that we can fact check. Let's pick one and Google it. Then let's look critically at our Google results. Who are the organizations or the people that are responsible for the websites that are in those results? Are you missing information? Which ones do you recognize? Which ones that don't you recognize? Many times our students do not have enough information or rather experience with solid pieces of journalism or solid credible news sites because we're telling them they can only use peer-reviewed research. So when we ask them to do a Google search and we don't teach them about how to critically analyze their Google results, they're kind of lost. This is part of the process that has tripped up my students tremendously, is they just don't understand what they're looking at. All of these sites are basically the same. So asking them to then select a site they recognize, that's one step to helping them start to develop a sense of the information landscape and different sources that are out there, kind of getting into whether or not they believe it is trustworthy and why. And what does the site say about the subject? Like getting a sense of what information is being shared. Does it actually agree with and support the claims being made in the meme or not? And then we get to have a big discussion. So I've done this with groups of students. So each of the groups chooses one of the artifacts that I have put together, or rather selected for them, and they get to unpack it, and we work our way through the meme. It's been difficult because this happened only once in person, and then it had to happen all online. So there are benefits. So the next portion of this presentation, I'm going to actually ask you to all engage with a few of these memes. So there are 4, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's actually a double feature for 1. I'm going to have you do this with, let me get rid of this particular one. I'm going to have you do this with Jamboard. So I'm going to share the Jamboard link for you. If you have not used Jamboard before, let me find the chat. I promise it is a very simple software or product to use, made by Google. I've really enjoyed using it for my teaching the past, I don't know how many days, what is time again? So I'm going to watch to see that you're all able to join. What we're going to do is use the arrows up at the top of the screen to toggle between different frames. I'd like you to select just one of these memes to kind of apply the same kinds of questions that I've just gone over. What is the message? What information can be fact-checked? And how might you go about fact-checking it? As a bonus, if you've got enough time, think about how you might approach this particular meme with students in a different discipline, in a different class. I'm pausing over this one in particular. This is my bonus feature. These are 2 images that are 100% engaged in anti-Asian hate speech, in my opinion. These are things that I found very easily during the beginning of the pandemic. The first one, the bat signal one, is one that I found in my social media feed. So these are things that are out there. Our students are seeing them. You may be seeing them, but not necessarily paying attention to them because you're already more critical consumers. I'm looking for these things. Like I'm actively trying to catch them so that I can pull them in as artifacts. But it is always really, really upsetting when I see this type of stuff in my own feed. So there, again, are just 4. So what I'd like you to do, there is a little bit of information on the first frame for how to use Jamboard, but I'm going to go through it quickly. There is a toolbar on the left side of the screen, and the 4th option from the top is a sticky note function. If you click on the sticky note, you'll be able to add in your notes, click save, and then you can exit out of it by clicking cancel and move it around. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes.
Did you put the link in the chat already?
I did put the link in the chat. I will do it again. All right. Thanks, everyone. That went really well. I thank you for really getting into this and engaging. We're going to start with the first one. As one of you or a couple of you recognize, this is an image from Toy Story. So if you haven't watched Toy Story in a while, I have a young nephew, so I have. This particular scene from the original Toy Story is when all of the toys are up in the window watching Andy's friends come for the party, bringing in presents. And they see first that first top image of the boy carrying what looks like a small package. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just a small one and we'll be good. And then the boy turns to profile and it's this really long, much longer than they realized present. So they freak out, and you may remember the shades kind of shaking as they freak out over the scene, the blinds. So we have cultural understanding here. One of you pointed out that this is probably aimed at an older audience, probably going for more the millennial generation that recognizes this type of image and can recall that scene and put all of that information about that scene into understanding the image and the words that are now laid over it. So we've got the boy is China, and then it's just a flu, it's small, but then it turns in profile and, oh, it's a pandemic worldwide crisis. So this does imply that China was lying about it just being a flu. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And actually, it's this huge crisis that is the first that we've seen in over 100 years. This is something that I found. This came up in my feed because I do follow alternative Disney because I enjoy funny Disney memes. When I saw this, I was immediately disgusted and frustrated. It was like, how could the people running this account not realize what they were sharing is engaged in some really problematic behavior that now it's going to encourage people that are commenting to express some extremely extreme frustration, but also to express hate. You may see, I've blocked it out a little bit with a little boom mark down here. This person responded, F the CCP. So we have issues when it comes to these memes. So you guys did a great job with understanding what is going on in this meme and how we need to unpack it. You may teach your students at this point to how do we find out more information about more information about the current situation. China has engaged in some downplaying, but we do need to figure out a more factual-based source of information than just relying upon a meme that is engaging us in a way, is asking us to engage in just reaction. This is a reactionary way of engaging with the information about the pandemic. Next one we have is very recent. This came about with the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack. You all did a great job unpacking this one as well. This again implies understanding of what's going on in the scene. So we've got the picture and what's going on in the picture, and then we're labeling the different people in the picture as different agencies. So one of you had a really good way of describing this, implying that the government is happily ignorant of the hard picture, definitely implying a leftist agenda superseding other issues, implication that US federal agencies are more concerned about the use of personal pronouns than a cyber attack. This is great. This is the kind of assessment that we want to recognize and be able to say, I'm not going to engage with this type of content. When you see an account sharing this type of content, do you want to continue liking, engaging, or following this account, especially if they're going to be sharing this kind of stuff? You may have noticed that there is a slight watermark here. it says at Grand Old Memes. So if you had questions about the source of this meme, we could look up at Grand Old Memes and see if we can find the original creator. This account I did look up. It is a private account, so I would have had to follow, but they are definitely describing themselves as a very angry Republican group that is engaging in meme culture. There is a long-running joke amongst this group that the left can't meme. So memes are really, really important to certain groups within the Republican Party right now. Next one, this one was shared with me by my dad. That's always fun. And he doesn't share these things with me on Facebook, but he does find them there. He finds things online, he saves them, and then he sends them to me in a text message. And then I debunk it in the text message, and he tells me, you can't trust any of those sites anyway. So that again comes back to a bigger issue that we have where we don't trust the same organizations, we don't trust the same sources of information anymore. And that, again, don't have enough time to get into that issue. But if you ever want to talk about it, I would love to. So that one little burp from Mount Etna has already put more than 10,000 times the CO2 into the atmosphere that mankind has in our entire time on Earth. But don't worry, a scam is in the works to tax you for your minuscule footprint. And you guys have done a great job. A couple of you have found links that you could use to help you assess whether or not this is true. This is a meme that has been thoroughly debunked as well. I mean, there's a question like, if you were working with your students, is this even Mount Etna? One. But two, we've got this piece of information or misinformation about the CO2 that is easy to look up and debunk. Google is your friend when you are using these kinds of artifacts for teaching information literacy. And our last one, and most disappointing one. So assuming things that are made in China are of inferior quality. So we've got that one for our Lisa Simpson meme. This is both of these I found on my own, unfortunately. Yes, you guys have definitely picked up on the racism that is going on here. We've got our left meme is particularly geared towards engagement. That's a really good point. It's not always going to be just the text in the image. It's going to be how the people running the account are asking their followers to engage with the material. So it's not just a call for a like, it's a call for a comment. And when we talk about engagement on social media, the comments are usually taken into a higher consideration by the algorithms right now. They're usually weighted better. So the more comments that things get on social media, typically the better bigger boost they will get as they are circulating the interwebs. There are some really great questions that you have all asked about what's actually the standard diet. There's a lot that we would need to understand about, or rather teach our students to learn more about a culture instead of using these memes to make snap judgments, to make racist assessments. This is really great. Thank you again for engaging this. I wish that we had more time, but I am going to close now and just say that this is, I think, one of the most important things for us to be doing right now is teaching our students to engage with information in the wild. College is a walled garden. When we teach them only about doing academic research, we are forgetting about all of the other ways they are going to engage with information. And it's really important for us to help them transfer information literacy skills to these new contexts. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing now and open the floor for questions.